Welcome to Rabbit Hole Research. This is Chevy Cool Lady bringing you a deep dive into a weird and somewhat unfathomable topic. Today we are exploring buildings made from human bones. That's right, human bones. If you have not seen them before, I have included lots of photographs. It's a dark subject and one that I cannot find a whole lot of information about. As always, we will look into the hand secret societies have to play in all this, and possible motives for building such macabre structures. To me, the big question is, why? Why is this okay? The narratives don't make sense, so let's look deeper into this bizarre phenomenon. I want to thank you for joining me. Grab a coffee and a snack and let's go. A building or structure made of bones is called an ossuary. An ossuary is a place where skeletal remains are stored or displayed, often to honor the dead or commemorating a mass tragedy. The ossuaries are decorated with thousands of human bones and skulls, arranged in various patterns and designs. Some include stories or poems reminding the reader of the fragility of human life and the inevitability of death. There is no definitive answer as to how many of these structures exist, due to sources having different criteria and methods for counting them. However, one possible estimate is based on the Atlas Obscura list of 40 ossuaries in 19 countries, mostly in Europe, but also in Asia, Africa, and North America. Some of the countries with the most ossuaries are in Italy, which has 7, France, which has 6, Czech Republic, which has 5, and Germany, which has 4. Of course, this list is not exhaustive and includes some structures that may not be made of human remains. There may be many more ossuaries that are not known to the public. I became aware of these structures only about 15 years ago or so, myself, and had no idea that there were so many in the world. I really was only aware of the famous catacombs under Paris until doing this research. There is a lot of material to cover, although there is not a lot of information because we see the same narrative repeated for most of these worldwide structures. Very similar to most old world architecture, we are fed a story and a history that doesn't fit with the knowledge and evidence that's being revealed by internet sleuths, like us, who are seeking the truth in all things. We are taking some information for the first part of the video from Bone Houses, a definitive guide to the world's ossuaries by MEG, which lists the top 40 ossuaries and a little story about each of them. In doing this research, I came up with some occult possibilities for the structures that are quite fascinating, but you have to stick with me until the end to discover this information and to avoid any misunderstandings. Please take the opportunity to like and subscribe to keep the cool content coming. Also, please leave your comments in the comment box below as we are constantly seeking more information. We are told that throughout the ancient and medieval times, and in the Catholic and Orthodox faiths, displaying the bones of the deceased was a way to honor the dead. But I have found there may be a far more sinister reason for this act, which we will discuss shortly. The ossuaries range from jaw-dropping churches, excuse the pun, to macabre mass crypts dug for tens of thousands of plague victims and fallen soldiers. Visiting the halls of the dead are definitely reminders of our own mortality, opening the conversation to what spiritual implications might we find, such as, what happens to the soul once we depart the body? Could these ossuaries be used for alchemy? Were the monks seeking immortality? I think there is a very good possibility. I will go into this later. This is a topic that cannot be rationally explained to me. But we will take a look at the top 40 crypts, cathedrals, and catacombs that fit into the ossuary category. Sedlec Ossuary Bone Church, decorated with over 40,000 human skeletons. This macabre place boasts of a splendid chandelier consisting of every bone in the human body. 2 large human bone chalices. This is very dark. My imagination leaps toward images of these being blood-filled. Candelabras, 6 enormous bone pyramids. I wonder if they were used for some type of power, who knows? Now I find this upsetting, but what appears to be a Eucharist vessel to display the host is also present. This would make for a very black mass. I mean, I know I would not want to be served anything on human dinnerware. It almost leads one to then cross over to cannibalism, because the next question would be, what happened to the messed off these bones? Disgusting, but there it is. We also see lots of skull candle holders and a family crest made of one, and of course festive chains. Yeehaw, sounds celebratory. The backstory to this place In the beginning of the 13th century, when the abbot of the Sedlec monastery, Abbot Henry, brought a handful of earth back from a journey to the grave of the Lord. He scattered the holy soil all over the cemetery, securing its place as one of the most desirable burial places for people all over Bohemia and the surrounding countries. They say everyone wanted to be buried in the holy handful of dirt, and more than 30,000 were. The story goes, wasn't long before there was no more room for the dead. They moved them, then, to crypts to make room for the newly dead. This sounds suspicious, but okay. Now here's the kicker. They say in the suspect year of 1870, a local woodworker was given the task to arrange the bones in dark artwork. František Rindt came up with the Schwarzenberg's coat of arms consisting of a raven picking at a Turk's severed head, and thousands of other works that are currently displayed. How likely is this? Considering the skill and craftsmanship that these obviously archaic places hold? Rindt was also responsible for bleaching all the bones, too. He also signed his name in bone, we are told. If you would like to see it, is about an hour's drive from Prague. The Skull Tower of Niš, Serbia is number 2. The year 1809 was a turning point in the course of the First Serbian Uprising against the Ottoman Empire. It lasted between 1804 until 1814. The Serbs had a big win by blowing up the Turkish keg of gunpowder along with his own arm and enemy soldiers. Angered by the rebels' resistance, the Turkish commander decided to teach them a grim lesson. The bodies of the dead soldiers were mutilated, stuffed with straw, and sent to Istanbul carrying their decapitated heads. The skulls were used to build a tower by the main road at the entrance to the city, warning of the fate of any rebels. We are told the towers comprise of 952 skulls. The skull of their commander was placed on top. Number 3 brings us to Hallstatt, Austria. Now this bone house is really interesting because it is filled with intricately painted skulls. Well, don't that beat all? This place is called the Charnel House, a small building stacked with 1,200 skulls. We are told that these are here due to its remote mountain location and lack of burial grounds. In the 1700s, they were dug up to make room for the newly dead. Sound familiar? Is this a thing? But anyway, the skulls were stacked inside the house. After the bones were bleached, they were stacked next to their kin. In 1720, the custom of painting the deceased information on the skulls began. What do you think? No room to bury in the remote location? SUS to us. Number 4 is Santa Maria della Concisione crypts in Rome, Italy. This is spicy with the bones of 4,000 friars, including an entire crypt of pelvises. Really? In the words of Marquis de Sade, I have never seen anything so striking. That says a lot. This crypt includes a grim reaper made of bone, and some extra creepy chandeliers. We are told that in 1691 the friars were told by the Pope's brother, Cardinal Barberini, to bring the remains of all the departed friars with them to their new home, so they all could be together. Instead of burying them, they decorated the halls with their dead brethren. A plaque on the wall reads, "What you are now, we once were. What we are now, you shall be." In the crypt of pelvises, the friars were mummified and hung from the walls and ceiling. Does this sound reasonable to you? Number 5 on the hit parade is an ossuary in Putim, Czechia. The mystery of the Putim ossuary is a tricorn hat. These skulls look particularly spooky. According to local legend, the ossuary hold the remains of the fallen soldiers from the Austrian secession of 1740 through 1748. Later, in 1829, a minister carefully laid out the bones and skulls as they are today. They say a certain trifold hat with a feather was placed on the skull of one of the fallen, and if it was moved, would return to the same skull. Number 6 is located in Germany, the Dingolfing ossuary. This is a mix of elegance with the macabre. A rather theatric display of more than 60 skulls are carefully hand-painted and etched with the owner's important dates. There are several oil paintings depicting the resurrection. Inches below are soul-tormented skulls as a reminder that you too shall join these. This type of ossuary is not as elaborate as some of the others, and I think the story is weird but believable. The ossuary of the chapel of the Cathedral of Otranto, Italy, is what I would say a very important ritual place. The crest and pine cones on the front of the building indicate the allegiance and loyalty to the Vatican. The children and the rose will indicate foundlings or perhaps even child trafficking possibly took place here. The window is called a foundling wheel. It is also called a rose wheel and may be linked to the Rosicrucians. The inside is adorned with window-protected dead bones and skulls peering out in twisted looks of agony. It is said to be a place of paranormal activity. In fact, this particular chapel was built to hold the bones of the martyrs of one such incident. A small group of Christians were said to have huddled together during an Ottoman attack. When they were found by the commander, they were given a choice to convert to Islam or killed. They stood firm in their faith, and the archbishop was beheaded and the clergy sawn in half. They sold the women and children of the village into slavery and killed the adult me. But one man, the tailor, though he had been beheaded first, stood upright and could not be brought down, even with the aid of an ox. It stood until the last victim passed. The country remained under Turkish rule for many years. In the 12th century it was returned and restored, and the bones of the martyrs collected and stored there to this day. The Melnik Chapel of Bones in Czechoslovakia is a stunning place intended, we are told, for the high-level royal ladies of Bohemia. Unfortunately, the plague swept through, creating a demand for 15,000 corpses to be buried. Basically, they were dumped into a vault, sealed and forgotten about for 240 years. According to the narrative, a Czech anthropologist named Matejka and arranged the bones in meaningful patterns and assembled his own ossuary. Professor, anthropologist, religious man, and ossuary-owning bone artist. Wow! St. Bride's Church in London, England is a landmark church discovered in the midst of the London Blitz. They were able to identify 200 of the 7,000 human remains found here. The unusual black and white floor may indicate a ritual room is above this floor. The last ossuary we will look at in this video is the Cham Munster Ossuary in Cham, Germany. We are told in 1830 a group of cemetery workers uncovered a chamber housing thousands of skeletal remains. From the 13th century, about 5,000 skulls are contained in the vaults. The turbulent Middle Ages, please take a moment to comment in the box below. I would like to know if you are interested in the remaining 30 ossuaries. I will continue these in another video. Thanks for your support. I want to thank you for staying with me to this point. I will offer some interesting information on this topic. And of course, the occult connections, as I am able to connect the dots. As I stated in the beginning, I have one burning question. Why? We are told time and time again that the burial grounds were full. The newly dead need to go into the ground. Sometimes there were enormous numbers of corpses due to war, famine, or calamity. Out of the ground with the old dead. Into the house, crypt, or vault they go. There they remain until some later date when they are moved or discovered. Then it's playtime? Here lies my question. Why is this all right? Isn't this tampering with the corpses? To disassemble and reassemble into household fixtures or worse, way worse, religious articles. We are told things were different back then, and people just made art from human remains. And it's all good. Holy places and such, you can still catch a church service at some of these chapels of bones. There's a pushback inside my soul when I think about this, for some reason. Perhaps the reason for the human bones was necromancy, speaking to the dead, seeking an oracle to speak prophecy or reveal hidden wisdom. Perhaps the monks and others were seeking to steal the birthrights from the dead. Perhaps they were stealing the corpse's heirs' rights. Do the dead have rights? In the law of our country, this present day protects the rights of the dead and of their heirs. Here's a poem. They dug them up from their eternal rest. The monks who sought to claim their legacy, they took their bones and built a gruesome nest, an altar of the dead for all to see. They said they did it for the greater good, to honor those who served the holy cause. But in their hearts, they understood they only did it for their own applause. They robbed the friars of their birthright fare, the land and wealth they left behind in trust. They did not care about their souls or prayer, they only cared for their own. This concludes Volume 1 of the Bone Chapel sagas. In my next video, we will delve deep into the etymology of the word as well as the occult practices that we touched on in this video. I love and appreciate you all. See you next video. I thank you for joining me. If you haven't done so, please take a moment to like and subscribe.